When we think about a really great, like deeply moving conversation with a friend, we usually imagine it as something completely organic.
Oh, absolutely. Something that just, flows naturally.
Right. It's spontaneous. It has awkward pauses, sudden bursts of laughter, moments where you entirely lose your train of thought.
Yeah, and then somehow you circle back to this really profound realization.
Exactly. And the messy nature of it is what makes it feel genuine, right?
Definitely. We inherently trust imperfection because, well, human cognition is imperfect.
But what if that exact feeling, that genuine, authentic, slightly messy human connection, could be, like, mathematically reverse engineered?
Wow.
Yeah. What if there was a literal step-by-step formula for authenticity? Today, we are taking a deep dive into a very specific stack of source material to answer that exact question.
And it is fascinating stuff.
It really is. We have an actual instruction manual in front of us. It's called the Lexicographic Blueprint for Conversational AI Podcasts. And it reads like something straight out of a sci-fi novel.
It really does, but it's a very real, very functional document.
Yeah.
And the freezing instruction manual is entirely accurate here. We are looking at a set of highly specific technical parameters.
Right.
And they're designed to take any standard piece of text like a dry article, a corporate newsletter, or even a dense technical tutorial.
Basically anything.
Exactly. And it transforms it into a highly stylized, artificially generated audio show that feels incredibly intimate.
It's effectively a recipe for synthesizing a podcast host out of thin air.
That's exactly what it is.
So for you listening right now, our mission today is to pull this blueprint apart. We're going to unpack this document to see exactly how it attempts to engineer a human connection out of cold, hard text.
It's wild to see how it works under the hood.
It really is. We're going to explore what these rules actually say about the mechanics of modern media, our fractured attention spans, and ultimately how easily our biological sense of trust can be hacked by a machine. But to truly understand the scale of what this blueprint is doing, we first have to look at the actors it's trying to create.
Right, because the prompt doesn't just feed text into a text-to-speech engine. It dictates the creation of very specific, contrasting personas.
Yeah, it mandates an overall vibe.
Precisely. The document calls for a Lex Fridman-inspired tone. It explicitly instructs the system that the resulting audio must sound calm, curious, and down-to-earth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it doesn't just, suggest a calm tone to the AI, it mathematically enforces it.
It does. It's so specific.
The blueprint dictates that the primary host persona must be reflective and measured. And to achieve that effect, it instructs the host to speak at exactly 0.85 times the average speaking rate.
Just incredibly precise.
Right, 0.85. And then, to balance that out, the co-host persona is instructed to be more energetic, to speak slightly faster, and to sprinkle in light humor.
So you essentially have the anchor and the propeller.
Yeah.
The blueprint is deliberately setting up this dynamic tension between the two voices.
I have to push back on this idea of a mandated speaking speed, though. Like artificially capping your speaking rate at that 0.85 speed to seem reflective.
You don't buy it.
To me, that's like artificially slowing down your heartbeat monitor at the hospital just to prove to the doctor that you're calm.
That is a great analogy.
Does slowing down your speech genuinely equate to having intellectual depth? Or is it just a sonic parlor trick? Are we just equating a slow, deliberate drawl with profundity because it sounds serious?
Well, we absolutely are, but it's a biological hack rather than just a sonic parlor trick.
Really? How so?
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychological manipulation of the listener's nervous system. When you hear someone speaking slowly and deliberately, it actually signals safety to your parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it mimics the cadence of a late-night deep thoughts kind of conversation, where there's no rush, no threat, no immediate action required, so trust is actively being manufactured in the audio space through pacing alone.
So the blueprint is essentially drugging us into a state of relaxation.
In a sense, yeah, it is. But if we connect there to the bigger picture, the blueprint purposefully contrasts that slower, measured pace with the faster, energetic co-host for a very specific reason.
Right, the anchor and the propeller.
Exactly. If both hosts spoke at that slower rate, the parasympathetic response would just take over completely and you would fall asleep.
The content would become hypnotic, right? You'd just tune out entirely.
Right. And on the flip side, if both hosts spoke incredibly fast with high energy, it would feel frantic, like a morning radio zoo crew, which totally exhausts the listener's cognitive load.
It's just too much.
Yeah. So by pairing the artificial slowdown with an energetic counterpart, the blueprint creates an attentional metronome.
An attentional metronome, wow, you're just being rocked back and forth between deep thought and light chuckle.
It perfectly balances your attention. The slow host pulls you into a state of calm focus, and just as your attention might begin to drift, the faster co-host wakes you back up with a change in tempo and a bit of humor.
It's a highly optimized mechanism for keeping you relaxed but continuously engaged over a really long period of time.
Exactly.
And if these engineered personas, this attentional metronome, are the paint used to color the listener's experience, the rigid structure outlined in this blueprint is the canvas.
That's a great way to look at it.
Because once you have your slow host and your fast host, the blueprint locks them into a staggeringly strict structural cage. It outlines a rigid 6-part architecture to organize the information and maintain momentum.
The document leaves absolutely nothing to chance regarding flow.
Nothing at all.
It dictates a cold open hook that must be 15 seconds or less. Then a welcome and roadmap, followed by the main segments, and that's one for every section of the source newsletter.
Right.
Then a mid-roll sponsor read, a big idea recap, and an outro.
Now, the macro structure makes sense, but the micro rules within that structure are wild. There's this incredibly strict post-segment rule.
Oh, this part is fascinating.
After every single main segment, the blueprint mandates that one probing question must be asked by the co-host, and the paraphrased answer to that deep probing question must be under 15 words.
Less than 15 words to summarize complex, often highly technical thoughts before the conversation is literally forced to move on.
I mean, forcing a complex AI or scientific concept into a 15-word box fundamentally changes the nature of the information.
It definitely does.
It's not just about making something shorter. Think about lossy audio compression, like an old, low-quality MP3 file.
Oh yeah, the crunchy sounding one.
Exactly. To make the file size smaller, the algorithm permanently strips out the highest and lowest frequencies. You can still recognize the song, sure, but the rich nuance, the depth of the bass, the breadth of the singer, it's all permanently deleted.
It's just gone.
Right. And applying that same lossy compression to semantic data, to human knowledge, forces the AI to strip away nuance and context. Doesn't that inherently kill the exact curious and deep vibe the blueprint is supposedly aiming for? I mean, how can you foster genuine intellectual curiosity if the system is legally bound to stop explaining after 14 words?
Oh, this raises a really important question about what depth actually means in modern digital consumption.
Yeah, what does it mean anymore?
Condensing a highly nuanced technical topic into 14 words absolutely strips away the actual intellectual rigor. It creates a paradox within the blueprint itself.
A paradox how?
The document demands a deep intellectual atmosphere, using the slow voice, the reflective tone, while entirely relying on highly constrained, gamified mechanics, like the sub-15 word summaries and those sub-15 second hooks.
So it's entirely the illusion of depth. It sounds smart, but it structurally prevents you from actually getting into the weeds.
Precisely. It reveals that the ultimate goal of this blueprint isn't actually intellectual depth at all. The goal is algorithmic retention.
Just keeping you listening.
Right. Long, meandering explanations, even if they are intellectually valuable and necessary to fully grasp a concept, they require effort from the listener.
And effort is bad for retention.
Exactly. Effort introduces friction, and friction gives the listener a chance to tune out or click away. A 15-word summary provides a quick hit of dopamine, a false sense of mastery over a complex topic, and then it immediately transitions the listener to the next segment before the cognitive load gets too heavy.
Wow. Keep it moving, just like the instructions literally say at the very end.
Yeah.
This obsession with algorithmic momentum doesn't just dictate how the AI is allowed to speak. It actually dictates what information is allowed to exist in the script at all.
Yes. The filtering rules.
Right. That brings us to the filtering rules. The blueprint explicitly instructs the system to skip every single newsletter block or text block that is advertising.
It lists very specific flags the AI must scan for and ignore.
Like what?
Anything starting with in partnership with or presented by, sponsored, or advertisement. All of that is to be immediately deleted from the source text.
Just wiped out.
Completely. And furthermore, it expressly forbids referencing the original sponsor's tools, products, or promotional copy anywhere in the generated audio script.
It aggressively sanitizes the original author's commercial intent.
It really does.
But the funny thing is, the blueprint does include a placeholder for a mid-roll sponsor read, but it specifically notes that the read is provided separately and absolutely not to be pulled from the source text.
Right. It wants total, uncompromising control over the monetization.
Exactly. It strips out the creator's original ads simply to make room for its own.
We're seeing the raw data of an article being decoupled from its original context. The text is stripped of its commercial ties, stripped of its nuance through that 15-word compression, and then repackaged into this perfectly paced, structurally flawless audio product.
It's wild. But, controlling the structural outline and the information flow is ultimately just a data management. How does a mathematical blueprint control the feeling of a human conversation? I mean, we're talking about genuine empathy, hesitation, and emotion.
Well, that brings us to what is arguably the most surreal and maybe unsettling part of this entire document,
Yeah.
the mathematical style rules and the mandated emotional textures.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I was reading this section and just marveling at the audacity of it. The blueprint literally dictates sentence structure to synthesize emotion.
It really does.
It mandates that 80% of all generated sentences must be between 8 and 14 words long.
It's
80%.
incredibly rigid.
And then, to prevent it from sounding robotic, it instructs the AI to mix in a few staccato lines under 6 words for impact.
What it's doing there is meticulously engineering the cadence of human breathing.
Wait, really? Breathing?
Yeah. We naturally vary our sentence lengths based on our breath control and our emotional state. So by forcing an 80% compliance to medium-length sentences, it creates a baseline rhythm that feels entirely natural to the human ear.
That's crazy. And it gets even more granular, right? It mandates marked, purposeful pauses. It tells the AI to insert a 2-second silence after dense ideas. It actually requires the prompt to write out the word beat in parentheses or 2-sec silence directly into the script.
Which is fascinating, because we need to look at the mechanism behind why a human pauses.
Okay, why did we pause?
When a person hears or articulates a dense, complex idea, they naturally stop speaking to process the information. It's a biological bottleneck.
Right, you need a second to think.
Exactly. The AI, however, does not have a cognitive bottleneck. It computes the entire script instantly. It does not need to pause to think.
Oh, wow.
It is being instructed to perform the act of thinking. It is theatrical cognition.
Theatrical cognition, I love that term. It calculates imperfections to sell that theater. Like, it explicitly dictates that filler words like or along with soft laughs must make up no more than 3% of the total words spoken.
3%.
It's 3%. And it prefers acknowledgments like and yeah. It mandates the use of contractions like gonna and kinda, and it requires vivid analogies. It actually gives the system an example, saying to use something like stacking Lego blocks of data.
The 3% rule for filler words is an absolute masterclass in psychological manipulation.
How so?
Well, if a synthesized voice uses 0 filler words, the uncanny valley effect kicks in. You immediately sense you're listening to a robot reading a teleprompter, and your guard just goes right up.
Right, it sounds too perfect.
Exactly. Conversely, if the speaker uses 10 or 15% filler words, they sound unpolished, nervous, and distracting.
It's hard to listen to.
Yeah. So someone mathematically determined that a 3% stutter rate is a precise ratio required to signal authentic, relaxed human, without crossing the line into annoying amateur.
That is calculated vulnerability.
It absolutely is.
And speaking of vulnerability, the absolute peak of this madness, the part that really made me stop in my tracks, is the emotional texture section.
Oh, this is the craziest part.
The blueprint literally schedules human emotion on a checklist. It demands one moment of wonder and one vulnerable admission.
Yes, it literally instructs the system to include one moment of wonder. And the example it provides to the AI is, whoa, imagine scaling to 1 billion queries.
And then it demands offer one vulnerable admission, giving the example, I still wrestle with prompt drift myself. Which, by the way, prompt drift, I don't even know what that is.
Actually, another rule in the blueprint mandates defining AI jargon in 12 plain English words or less. So let me try.
Okay, let's hear it.
It is when an AI gradually forgets its original instructions over time.
11 words. Perfect. You passed the test.
Thank you.
But looking at this idea of scheduled vulnerability, I can't help but compare it to the laugh track of a 90s sitcom.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison.
Think about the mechanism of a laugh track, right? It prompts the viewer exactly when to feel amused. Joke happens, cue recorded laughter, you should laugh now.
Right, it's telling you how to feel.
This blueprint is deploying the exact same mechanism, but for deep human empathy. Cue 2-second silence. Cue vulnerable sigh about prompt drift. You, the listener, should feel deeply connected to me right now.
Hmm.
If vulnerability is perfectly planned out on a mathematical blueprint to hack your empathy, does it completely lose its power? I mean, does it become emotionally void?
Well, the history of media is essentially the history of simulating intimacy.
That's true.
The theatrical pause on a stage, the close-up shot in a film, the laugh track on television, they are all artificial constructs designed to elicit a genuine biological response.
Right.
What's fascinating here is how the blueprint defines humanity itself. If you look closely at its closing mantra, it says, "Write for the ear, not the eye. Keep it human, keep it moving."
Keep it human. It says that right in the document.
Yes. It uses the phrase "keep it human" as a stylistic structural instruction. The document treats being human not as a fundamental state of being, not as a soul or a complex consciousness, but as a rigid recipe. Yeah, it's a recipe made of specific word counts, calculated stutters capped strictly at 3%, timed emotional beats, and a 0.85 speaking rate. It suggests that our humanity, at least the way we perceive and consume it in digital media, is entirely reducible to a set of mechanical parameters.
Wow. It is the industrialization of the intimate conversation.
That's a great way to put it.
It's taking the artisanal, messy, beautiful thing that is two people talking in a room, uncovering a shared truth, and putting it on a perfectly optimized, dopamine-inducing assembly line.
And we have to ask ourselves why this blueprint was created in the first place and why it is so highly detailed.
Why do you think?
It exists because it works. As much as we might critique the idea of condensing profound scientific thoughts into 15 words or faking a 2-second pause to simulate deep thought, these parameters were chosen because they successfully hack the modern listener's attention span.
They bypass our critical faculties entirely.
Exactly. They go straight to our nervous system. They keep us listening.
Which brings up a really uncomfortable thought about our own biology. If I'm listening to a host speak slowly and thoughtfully, and they take that beautifully timed 2-second pause, and then they softly say, I still wrestle with this myself, and I feel a genuine physical ping of empathy in my chest.
Right, an actual emotional reaction.
Yeah. Does it matter that a computer algorithm scheduled it?
If the emotional response in you, the listener, is real and chemically identical to the empathy you feel for a real friend, does the authenticity of the source actually matter?
I mean, I want to say yes. I desperately want to say it matters deeply that there's a real soul on the other end of the microphone. But my biology might not care.
It probably doesn't.
My brain hears the 3% filler words, it registers the 0.85 speed, processes the perfectly constructed 8 to 14 word sentence, and just fires off the trust and empathy chemicals anyway.
So what does this all mean for us as consumers of information moving forward?
Well, let's recap the journey we just took. We've decoded a literal blueprint that attempts to reverse engineer a human conversation. It actively controls speaking speed to fake intellectual depth and trigger a parasympathetic safety response. It compresses complex insights into 15-word boxes to guarantee algorithmic retention and provide a false sense of mastery.
Right.
It calculates imperfections down to a 3% ratio to avoid the uncanny valley, and it quite literally schedules moments of wonder and vulnerable admissions, like hitting a button on a soundboard.
So for you, listening to us right now, it is really worth examining your own daily media diet through this lens.
Absolutely.
Consider how much of the content you consume, the video essays you watch, the audio you listen to, the newsletters you read, might secretly be running on a similar invisible architecture.
Yeah.
We are entering an era where trust is a manufactured commodity.
It's everywhere.
So you have to ask, how much of the authenticity you feel online is organic, and how much is a lexicographic blueprint designed specifically to keep you comfortable, compliant, and continuously consuming?
Which leads me to a final, slightly haunting thought to leave you with today. We have spent this entire deep dive talking about how this blueprint uses psychological parlor tricks and lossy compression to simulate a human connection.
Yeah.
But technology never stops improving. If an artificial intelligence system eventually executes this blueprint flawlessly, if it completely nails the sentence structures, the perfect 3% filler ratio, and that beautifully timed, perfectly resonant, vulnerable sigh, will our human brains actually be able to tell the difference?
Oh.
Or worse, as our attention spans continue to fracture and our tolerance for real, messy, unstructured human interaction goes down, might we actually start to prefer the perfectly engineered algorithm over real, imperfect conversation?
A fascinating and, honestly, slightly terrifying question to end on. It's been an absolute pleasure dissecting this blueprint with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.